Welcome to Three Nice Things, the podcast that has decided we've been so mean to these movies, it's time to say three nice things. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com, where we have a forum for you to share your thoughts on this and upcoming movies. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Nice Things Pod, and please rate, subscribe, and share the show on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Today, we're talking about the 1995 cyberpunk film, Johnny Mnemonic. I'm Eric Mickles, known online as duskvstweak, and with me is Kendra Mickles, known online as Miss Musicbox 91.
Hello.
And Marius, also known as Ensville Games.
Hello.
So this movie is based on the William Gibson story of the same name, and the film... Alright, so the film was originally thought of as an art house movie. The director had planned to make it like a small film, and he thought it would only cost $1.5 million to make. But no one wanted to finance $1.5 million art house cyberpunk film. So
Shocker.
Go figure.
Somehow the director, Robert Longo,
Oh, yes.
changed his plan and sold it as a larger scale film. And Sony bit that and raised the budget to $26 million. So they had a better time raising almost $30 million than they did $1 million.
That's psychology at play right there.
The movie made $20 million in the United States, so it would have been a bomb, but worldwide it made $52 million.
Oh.
So it actually had more success throughout the world as opposed to just domestically here in the United States. And in fact, there is a Japanese cut of the film with extended scenes and dialogue. But they were spared that blinding laser effect during the opening text crawl.
Oh, those lucky Japanese people.
Yeah, they still had to read every line of dialogue, but they didn't have to read it through a laser show.
Yeah, that
That
went
was
on for
rough.
a while.
Yeah. Watching that, it was definitely like, okay, there's more to go, all right, but also
Yeah,
I can't see. Yeah.
My wife refused to read it, and I was just like, "This is awful. It should be a seizure warning."
I know it feels like the Men in Black device to make us forget. As of now, Johnny Mnemonic on Rotten Tomato has a score of 13% with the critics. But it kind of has a cult following, which brings its audience score up to 31%. Now, Roger Ebert in 1995, and Roger Ebert is a film critic that I tend to find is more snide than helpful, but of this film he said, Johnny Mnemonic is one of the great goofy gestures of recent cinema, a movie that doesn't deserve 1 nanosecond of serious analysis, but has a kind of idiotic grandeur that makes you almost forgive it.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Snide, yes.
Yeah, I think Johnny Mnemonic's face would be sore from all that backhanding. Ens, Kendra, and myself, what are our histories with this movie? When did you first see this movie? When were you aware of it? Kendra, why don't you start this one?
I had heard of this movie, and I knew Keanu Reeves was in it, and that's about all I knew. So my first time watching it was last night when we watched it. I don't know. It was an interesting watch. I also didn't hate it, but it was difficult to see any silver linings there.
Ens, what about you?
I mean, this came out in '95, so I'm not sure when it got released on VHS here in Norway.
Okay.
But probably like late 95, maybe 96. I don't even know if it was on in theaters here because back then our theaters really only did the really big movies.
This wasn't it?
No. But I probably saw it pretty much when it came out here.
Okay, but on VHS?
Yeah, I believe that would have been it. Because
Okay.
that was the thing back in 95, wasn't
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Probably.
How many times have you seen this movie since?
I honestly don't know, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it a couple of times. But
Okay.
it's probably been like 20 years. I saw it a few times when it was new, probably because
Right.
friends hadn't seen it and stuff. And
Was
Honestly,
this?
we were kind of excited for it because me and my friends were heavily into Cyberpunk 2020 role-playing
Sure.
game.
Oh, right.
And this is set in the world that inspired that stuff. It's William Gibson,
Right. Yeah.
the father of cyberpunk literature, really.
Yeah.
And he wrote the screenplay I saw.
Okay, so was this a movie then that you were like, guys, you have to come over and watch Johnny Mnemonic?
I mean, I'm pretty sure me and a couple of friends were like, we gotta watch that movie, we gotta get it, and we went and all watched it together, like the hardcore gang, and then we had a couple of guys come over later and like, oh, we gotta see that. Have you seen Johnny Mnemonic?
Sure.
A couple of hours ago.
You bring up a good point, though. Kendra, I wanted to ask this. What's your experience with cyberpunk in general? Have you read any cyberpunk? Have you watched any cyberpunk?
You're gonna have to refresh my memory.
Besides The Matrix.
I can't really think of much. Can you? You're the one that I always ask. Like, have I seen?
All right. Well,
we've played the board game Netrunner. And,
yes.
And a couple of stuff that they said in the movie, I was like in the board game Netrunner.
Yeah. At one point they're like, we gotta get through the ice or something.
She's
like,
ice.
oh yeah.
Yeah, Netrunner was actually
I'm more
the
of
was based on the cyberpunk pen and paper role playing game.
Oh.
Yeah, Netrunner has a.
I really like Netrunner, but I'm usually more of a steampunk person than a cyberpunk person, so I think
Punk fight.
I have nothing against cyberpunk. I just normally gravitate more towards steampunk stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Ends. What about you? Besides Cyberpunk 2020, have you read much William Gibson? Did you have a lot more cyberpunk before you were watching this?
I've read like one or two of his books. I don't quite remember which now because it's been a while.
Right.
But other than that, it's we really got into it, me and my friends, with the pen and paper role playing game.
Right.
We ordered a bunch of books from this store in Oslo and really went into that for quite a while.
Any Shadowrun?
Actually, not a whole lot. No.
Okay.
Surprisingly, but we were very interested in the genre in general, and I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of movies you could bring up and stuff like. I mean, Blade Runner is kind of a cyberpunk thing.
Yeah, Blade Runner's probably a lot of people's quintessential cyberpunk film.
And that's like what 12, 13 years older than this movie.
What is it? 1985? I didn't research Blade Runner.
Like 83
years. Yeah. So even long. So.
I don't know what their budget was though compared to this. And also, they didn't really have all the CGI there, so they couldn't make that.
Sure.
Should we explain?
But in general, I like the genre.
Yeah. Yes, for people who aren't aware, because maybe you didn't watch Johnny Mnemonic and all the other stuff, cyberpunk is basically the near future. Usually, the tropes of cyberpunk: mega corporations that have taken over everything, kind of like Disney. Usually the heroes are underdogs that are living kind of in the dredges of society. So usually the nice, aesthetically pleasing things are in like high towers, and then the streets are just grungy, trash-ridden areas. Heavy emphasis on cyberspace and very near future tech. Though I've heard the problem with cyberpunk, writing it and enjoying it, is that cyberpunk is the future that we keep catching up to. And so
that is the thing, though. I noticed that while watching the movie too. A few things are like, yeah, we have that now and better.
Yes.
So,
at one point, he says, "I need an iPhone," but he means it like
VR
headset. But I heard that, I'm like, hey, he said iPhone, near future. They predicted the iPhone.
Yeah, that is the thing though, because it's all very like the 80s and 90s vision of the future.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of the source material is from that time. I tried running a little bit of a cyberpunk pen and paper role playing game campaign with some friends like a couple of years ago.
Right.
And looking through the source material, it was like mobile phones the size of a cigarette box.
Right, sure.
They're like $5,000.
Yeah.
Like, no. And it's got a lot of that, these crazy visions of the future. And I mean, like the pen and paper game 2020, this movie was set in 2021, I believe.
Yep, 2021.
So this basically happens in 2 years.
Yeah, we're catching up to Johnny Mnemonic.
We are. And a lot of the basic technology.
When are all the memes going to be saying, this is the year Johnny Mnemonic, or...
Yeah.
But we have a lot of that stuff, like you say, and better, and they
Mhm.
didn't have flat screens, then they couldn't really mock them up for the movie, I guess.
Yeah, it's always funny watching
Everything's enormous.
watching something that's supposed to take place in the future, but they're stuck with the
Mhm.
video quality of their time. So it's like, oh, cool. So this takes place like 30 years in the future, but they're stuck with 360p.
Yeah, they get their VGA graphics.
Yep.
And,
Yep. HDMI.
Yeah.
What? Myself, I had never watched Johnny Mnemonic as a kid, as a teenager, or anything. This was my first time watching Mnemonic. But my mom is a huge Keanu Reeves fan. So this was at one point she got this on DVD. So I've known about it for a long time, and it sat on our DVD shelf for a long time. But every time I looked at the cover or the back cover, I'm like, this looks really bad. And so outside of watching this movie, the most I knew about Johnny Mnemonic was that it had a well-received pinball game. The pinball machine. We even had one at our local Pizza Hut. In like 2005, we still had one. And like, I knew people like, oh, sweet, the Johnny Mnemonic pinball machine. Let's do this. So, if anything, yeah, I knew it more from its pinball reputation.
Oh, that's something good that came out of it. Is that one of your nice things?
No, that's not one of my nice things. And besides Mnemonic, I've read some William Gibson and seen Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell and
Matrix. Ghost in the Shell.
And I know of. I haven't read too much cyberpunk, so it's always fun to get into it because yes, good cyberpunk is great, but it is very stuck in the 80s and 90s. Mainly because it's inspired by stuff like Blade Runner and Johnny Mnemonic. So let me share some facts about these movies. So actors who dodged the bullet, there actually wasn't a lot of behind-the-scenes drama with Johnny Mnemonic. Usually I find with movies with a bad reputation, you got a lot of people yelling behind the camera, but there's only a little bit, and not a lot of actors known to turn roles down. But Christopher Lambert, who from Highlander and who played Raiden in Mortal Kombat, was almost cast as Johnny Mnemonic himself, or just Johnny.
Is he
the lightning guy?
Powers?
Yes. Okay. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So he was almost the main. This does kind of seem like a Christopher Lambert genre film he might take, but he's usually pretty solid though. So like Highlander is much more well thought of than Johnny Mnemonic.
I still haven't seen that.
Bono was in talks to supervise the soundtrack, and he would, if he had done that, he would have also been cast as Street Preacher.
Oh my god!
So imagine Bono walking in those the cloaks and everything as Street Preacher, but with Bono's sunglasses, I assume.
Oh, he never goes anywhere without his sunglasses.
So, question about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, I'm looking at the cover here. It says Keanu Reeves and Dolph Lundgren.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the Street Preacher, which is Dolph Lundgren, it's not that big of a part.
I know.
Yes.
Would Bono have gotten poster top billing?
Let's talk about some Dolph Lundgren here. So this is taken from the Hollywood Reporter, but they were reporting on a conversation that happened at LA's Orpheum Theater in 2016, and director Robert Longo said of the movie and Dolph Lundgren, each week they came back and told me that I have to have a new actor. To sell the movie in the Middle East, we have to have Dolph Lundgren.
What?
Dolph shows up with his acting coach, a guy with a cape and a cane. We said, get the F out of here. Longo and author Gibson, who wrote the screenplay, didn't know what to do with Lundgren, so they dressed him in robes and long hair and sent him out on the street as a doomsday prophet.
So that wasn't even the role? They just kind of made that up?
I guess so. Longo continues and says, it was torturous. We tried to make the best movie we could. It was really hard. I talked to William Gibson recently. William and I have had post-traumatic stress from that movie. Johnny Mnemonic. I said, you know what? I'm going to turn it black and white for the 25th anniversary and release it on the web. Actually, right now, we're in the process of trying to figure out how to do it. The 45-minute version of it without Dolph.
Oh my god.
His role is it's weird and doesn't make sense with the rest of the movie.
Dolph Lundgren spent the next 15 years doing direct-to-video work until 2010's The Expendables.
Yeah, and now he's...
Which,
beloved.
Basically.
Now he's back. Yeah, now Dolph is in Aquaman and Creed 2, and he's in some big films this year. The other actors, Dinah Meyer, who played Jane, she would go on to star in another adaptation of a classic sci-fi film, Starship Troopers.
Oh.
Yes, and she actually she played Barbara Gordon on the ill-fated one-season run of Birds of Prey.
Oh wow, really?
Yes.
So that's where I know her from.
Starship Troopers. Yeah, I was trying to remember her face too, and that's it. She was also in Dragonheart. And Keanu Reeves, of course, would star in another cyberpunk tale 4 years later in the much more successful film The Matrix.
Much more successful.
It's always funny to think this is 4 years away from The Matrix. You know, this is Johnny Mnemonic is cyberpunk 4 years before The Matrix just blew our minds and melted our faces.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah. All right. But enough of all that Dolph Lundgren bashing. It's time to say our 3 nice things. But before we do,
I thought he did well.
Before, well, you know,
for the part, he just had to walk around and be huge and say Jesus and try to kill him.
It's Jesus time.
It's Jesus time.
That's the best line in
That's
the movie.
his catchphrase. Before we start with the 3 nice things, Kendra, would you like to summarize the plot of this film for anyone who's just listening but hasn't seen the movie?
I'd love to.
But also be aware, we will be spoiling this film.
So, Johnny is a courier, and he downloads information into his brain and transports it other places for safety reasons, so that it won't get hacked on the internet or whatever.
Yep.
So he gets a job. He needs to do one more job, and Eric and I disagree on why he wants to do that.
You were right. I looked it up. He wants to do the job so he can get his old memories back because he's using all his brain space to courier.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Information around.
So he gets this job.
Yeah, I thought it was for the money.
Yeah, I didn't get that from the movie.
Because he has a long speech in the movie about how he wants room service!
So anyway, so he gets this job, and the amount of data he has to put in his brain is like twice what he's allowed. Yeah. And so he does it, and then he tries to take it and get rid of it, and it's frying his brain, and he
needs to get rid of it.
He needs to get it out of his brain. So it's just about him meeting people and trying to, you know, get the stuff out of his head.
They're running from Dolph Lundgren's cyborg street preacher.
Cybered out to
and at one point,
full of implants.
They require the help of Ice-T.
Yes.
Yes.
Who is in this film.
That was very exciting.
When we were watching it, me and the wife, she hated it, and she thought her nice thing was that it ended. But we were like, is that Ice-T?
Yeah, that's Ice-T.
That's Ice-T.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. So, and you seem to have a positive view on this film. So why don't you start with your first nice thing?
I mean, I didn't hate it.
Right.
That's a nice thing, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of dumb in some ways, and you know, it's a CGI is very low budget 90s. It could have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I think for what they did, I think they did an okay job of doing the whole aesthetics of it in this cyberpunk atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. So you actually think this belongs in the the canon of must-watch cyberpunk movies and stuff?
I mean, must-watch is maybe generous, but I didn't hate it. But I also have the nostalgia factor, and but I thought they did okay. They had, I mean, the environment looked reasonably trashy. You had the evil megacorps, and not just the aesthetics, but the entire plot and story of the movie, such as it is, really has the whole. It's got the high tech, and it's got the stick it to the man. They got the corporations, and it all has the whole, which is relatable to things that have been brought up in real world politics a lot over the past few decades since this movie came out. The whole evil big pharma trying to spend. It's more profitable to treat the disease than to cure it.
Yep.
That whole thing, you know, it's got the whole political undertones, even though it's not. It's maybe kind of delivered as a cheesy action movie, but the underlying story script and stuff, it's it fits. I mean, it's William Gibson. He wrote the screenplay as well. So
yes.
So what's there is it's cyberpunk, and it's I don't know, it's pretty well put together. Even though it's not a great movie. It's dumb and cheesy in parts, and Keanu is not a good actor.
Not in this one.
Not in this. All his deliveries were quite strange.
Yes, I'll defend Keanu in a lot of other films and his acting ability, depending on the role, but not in this movie, which is so strange because he seems to love doing these weirder sci-fi films, but
I don't know. I don't know if he was not in great form, or if he was trying to read his brain hard drive. Or, he just walks around in a kind of ill-fitting suit and looks like he reads the script directly to the camera sometimes. So, but anyway, my first nice thing is that it's cyberpunk. The aesthetics and the general story points.
Yeah.
If you like that stuff, it's okay.
Yeah, 95 is the same year Ghost in the Shell, the anime, was in theaters.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of the year of cyberpunk. I don't know what else came out in 95. So two things came out, makes it the year.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, they don't really show a whole lot of the whole cybernetics and implants and stuff. Right. It mostly gets talked about here, and you have the whole brain hard drive thing that Johnny has. And they say that Dolph is basically more machine than man.
Yeah.
They don't do a whole lot of visual stuff with the major implant stuff. But, I mean, that might be budget reasons as well.
All right. All right. So my first nice thing is it's kind of dumb how Johnny interacts with the gloves. It looks kind of silly, but I really liked the internet in this movie. I liked how they envisioned the future of the internet. I'm not saying it makes sense in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying I want to sit there with the like the Back to the Future 2 eyeglasses and the goofy gloves and look like I'm opening a fake envelope and typing on a fake piano. But there's something just really cool and fun about their view of the internet, because like they just fill the screen. Like that must be where all the budget went, just like into the CG. Sometimes it's bad CGI, but for 1995 it actually didn't look so bad. They just fill it with data coming at you and messages and advertisements and just things that say, well, it's just such a sensory overload, and it's so much more exciting than the internet we have now. It just are like, just Microsoft Windows or whatever you're using. It'd be so much cooler if that. I could see like when VR finally takes off as like, and everybody has it, that people release like interact with the internet like Johnny Mnemonic, and it being a successful interface, because it's fun. So
and it looks like the Oculus Rift that people use. I mean, it's like the same glasses and stuff.
And a couple of Nintendo Power Gloves.
Yep, a couple of Nintendo Power Gloves for sure.
Can you name some other movies that would have had CGI like this so I can compare it in the same time?
1995? What is that? That might be... I could be wrong. Independence Day is either 95 or 96.
Okay.
Jurassic Park was 2 years before.
I would say my mind instantly went to Lawnmower Man, which it turns out was 92.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awful.
Yeah. So the CGI around the time is going to be Independence Day. I think it's on the way.
Wondering what I should be comparing it to.
And I don't mean the second time he uses the internet. I didn't like that. That's with the dolphin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like the look of it, and it was less exciting for some reason. But it's interesting because he only uses the internet, and it's all over the poster, but he only goes into that interface like once, and then again at the end very quickly.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, for that first time, it's like, all right, let's do this. Let's get into the internet. So
I'll agree with you there. I honestly thought it was going to look much worse.
Yeah.
Being, some 24 years old.
Yeah.
And it also was very cyberpunk.
Yeah.
That's the whole deal. You can do it. That's where the Netrunner thing comes from.
Yeah. I remember now why I didn't like the second part, because we get to see his 3D avatar of himself
Avatar, yeah.
with his
That's-
stretched
Cylinder
out
head.
pencil head.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it shows how big his head is.
Yep.
I don't know.
It looked like a really bad
Yeah.
CGI Gumby.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that was when he was interfacing with the dolphin
Yeah.
and fighting the virus and stuff.
yeah.
Yep.
Kendra, first nice thing.
My first nice thing is that I think the plot is solid. And by that I mean you could follow it. And I think if you took this and made it again today, I think it would still work. Like
The concept of human couriers.
yeah, that concept of like you don't want someone to hack your information, so I'm going to put it in this person and that person's going to deliver it. Like I think that is a solid plot. And because of that, it's not like with Mario where there was like, I don't know, that plot was
Go back and listen to our Super Mario Brothers episode of 3 Nice Things.
You really should. I did that today.
But with this one, I mean, there were like different, the different cast of characters, the like underground people, and then the like bodyguard people, and the Yakuza. So I don't know. I enjoyed the story, and I don't think that if you tried, like, it didn't feel dated to me. It didn't feel like, oh, well, this is clearly 20 years ago or whatever. Like, it felt like,
Well, you
sure, the internet, and yeah, this is stuff we're doing still. So, yeah, because of that,
I might disagree on the it doesn't feel dated, but
well,
I might have been looking for that.
The whole look is dated, but I think that the basic story is not dated.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my first
think
nice thing.
That is a nice thing.
Yeah.
Enz, what is your second nice thing about Johnny Mnemonic?
Hey, Jones the gosh dang dolphin.
The dolphin, yep.
The dolphin. I'm gonna put that out as a nice thing. It's just when they unveil Jones, this one person, entity, whatever, kind of shrouded mystery. It's like Jones can help you out, and it's a special forces dolphin.
Yep. All hacked into
Like,
with
pulses and brain hacking, and
Yep.
he squeaks at you, and it's like
It's got cybernetic implants all around him. I almost thought he was going to psychically talk with a human voice. Like, I thought we were going to hear him like, "Welcome, Johnny. I'm Jones."
I was kind of expecting that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 20, 30, 20 years since I saw this, so I don't have much of it. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he had like a voice synthesizer or something.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Dr. Jones. You know?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, Jones the dolphin. It's a fun twist, and it's.
And
it's
Johnny's
also,
reaction to it is really funny. He's like, "No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
doing
what the
this."
what?
I like,
Then
he's so mad. He's like, "It's a fish!" But then Jane is
I was
just
like,
like, "It's actually a mammal." I'm like,
then a dolphin tries to fry him.
Yeah.
It's a mammal, and then he calls it a fish again.
yeah, I know. And the
Jeez,
dolphin's just like, "Yeah, I'll
Johnny.
help."
But
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it's funny. It's also kind of dumb, but it's like dolphins. They're known for being smart and all. Hitchhiker's Guide knows it.
Yeah, in 2 years.
And it actually references, the whole special forces dolphin thing. That is a thing. They tried, training dolphins to do all kinds of stuff, submarines and mines and all stuff. They're smart. I don't know if they can, do a whole lot of brain hacking, but maybe.
Yeah.
Humans can
We'll
carry
find out
information,
in
maybe.
2021.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But just the fact, just the entirety of Jones, the dolphin, I am
liked
super
that
on
too.
board with that being a thing.
I feel sad for him. He's in this like
I
very
feel
small.
sad for him, though.
He's in a very small tank in the
He's not
water's-
swimming around, and I guess he's
The
a mammal.
water's
He
all
doesn't need to swim
green.
around to live or whatever, but he should be allowed to.
Yeah.
The water didn't look clean,
Nope.
but I guess Jones knows that he does important work. He sacrifices
Sure.
himself
Yeah.
He's a
for his
humanitarian
bipedal
dolphin.
brethren. I don't know.
Yeah, the same way German Shepherd dogs are most satisfied when they're doing work, Jones the dolphin is most satisfied when he's hacking into the
Hacking
net.
brains.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's okay. I don't need the ocean. I'm doing good work.
Yes.
So
I salute you, Jones.
Yeah.
You're a solid dolphin.
All right, my second nice thing is I liked the guys who give Johnny the package. The kids, the guys way over their head. When Kendra's looking at me like she doesn't.
In the beginning of
in the beginning of the movie, and Johnny's like, double cheese. He's ordering.
I liked his glasses. He had the like green round glasses.
Yeah, but
I like those.
The kids who are like, I mean, I call them kids because they just seem so young. I mean, they're watching anime. They're over their heads, but there's something kind of refreshing about in this like cyberpunk universe with the Yakuza after Johnny, and then you get Dolph Lundgren as this cyborg preacher monster. There's something refreshing about just these kids who are too over their head and don't know what they're doing. And I mean, yeah, when things go bad, they get mowed down, but they kind of cracked me up in their almost ineptitude.
Yeah.
But I think that was the intent, that we're supposed to see like, oh boy, these guys need Johnny to deliver the package. But they're so twitchy. They just seem like, you can tell like Johnny's like, oh, come on. And I think all the guys playing those roles played it right. You definitely know that if the Yakuza are coming, they're gonna have no problem. Even though all these kids in this hotel have like machine guns, they don't know what they're gonna do with them. They're terrified. So
yeah. Because I noticed, I mentioned to Road when they sat down afterwards to get ready. And it's like, did you see that one guy who sat down and he so gingerly places like an assault rifle on the coffee table?
Yeah, he doesn't really know how to use it. He's like, if I put it down, will it go off?
Is the actor afraid of the prop gun, or is he just really playing the part well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also like that hotel room, so that was nice. That's the last time we see a set that nice. Everything's about to get real grungy after that. Well, I felt bad for them when things go badly. So.
Yeah, but you know that's actually that's a very nice thing, and it's a very representative thing of the whole cyberpunk thing. I think because it's all about the younger generations trying to topple the megacorps and stuff and getting in over their heads.
Yeah,
they don't know what they're doing, but they want to do something big.
Well, they did. They saved the world. They sacrificed their goofy little lives for it. So it's funny because in the movie, Mnemonic has to get his Johnny has to have a code with images shown, and one of them's an anime image because that's what the kids what they have on TV. Just a very 90s looking anime too, very early 90s, and Kendra, what's your second nice thing to say about this movie?
My second nice thing is I enjoyed the character of Jane. I liked her. I thought she was spunky, and she wasn't like I didn't find her annoying. Like sometimes side characters in movies like this just have like super annoying dialogue or like quirks, but I liked her, and then we find out that she like has the disease and that she's been, she's trying to overcome that, and I liked her look too. Not necessarily the chainmail.
She's wearing chainmail under her clothes.
But I liked her like oversized jacket, and I liked her as a character more than Johnny for sure.
The jacket has to be oversized if she's wearing chainmail.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know what she saw in Johnny.
No,
because she starts like looking at him longingly and brushing his hair while he's out, and I'm like, you like him?
He hasn't done anything. He's just
that was like one of the most 1995 things about the whole movie, that sudden forced love interest.
Actually, at one point, because Johnny's like, I don't care, I'm not gonna help anybody, I want the money and this stuff, and that's when she starts kind of like fawning on him, and I was like, is she pretending to be into him so that he gets mixed up and then helps them out anyway because he thinks she likes him?
I don't know that it was that deep.
I don't think it's in that depth, but I did write down, it's like, is she using his heart to get to his head? Literally,
she
because that's
bad boys, and she wants to fix him.
Yeah. I just think I can fix him. Who is she in Starship Troopers?
Have you seen Starship Troopers?
Yeah.
Did we watch Starship Troopers together?
Yeah.
The movie.
Yes.
With this big CGI bugs.
Yes.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes, we watched it together.
I can't remember the character's name, but I mean, out of the troopers, she's the one who looks like Dinah Meyer with curly hair.
I think I enjoyed her in that movie as well. Yeah. So
that means ends. We're on to your third and last nice thing that you have to say about Johnny Mnemonic.
That's a tough one. I almost had a tie here.
I can usually while watching the movie, I can come up with two things, and it's by the end I'm like, I need a third thing. I feel like Johnny yelling for you, room service, like, I need 3 things.
Yeah, I had a really hard time because I was over halfway through the movie, and I'm like, I don't know. But one of my first things that I was gonna go for was the monofilament loose nail slice and dice weapon.
Oh yeah,
The laser weapon.
Because it triggered my nostalgia from the pen and paper game, because that was an option you could take on your character called the slice and dice.
Okay.
And that was cool and all, but you know, that's just the thing. I'm gonna go with my third nice thing actually being Johnny's room service speech. I liked it.
Do you?
That
He went
sudden
for it.
outburst of just, I want room service. I want the club sandwich. La, 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 la.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could tell you, the people who responded to us on Twitter and Instagram and all that, a lot of them just yelled, "I want room service." So it's
I don't know. I thought it was
all
weird.
caps.
It was like suddenly random and, you know, barely coherent. But it was, I don't know. It was, Keanu seemed emotional for a second, which he's not good at.
no, not unless you kill his
Keanu.
dog.
I mean, I love watching both the John Wicks and stuff, but he doesn't emote well.
Yeah.
He just needs to look sad and kick ass. But kick butt. Can you edit that?
No, you can say either.
Oh, cool. I don't know ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the room service speech. I actually wrote that down when it happened. I'm like, I'm going to put that down as a nice thing.
Okay.
Because, I don't know, suddenly he seemed to, you know, emote and stuff. But, of course, the question is, did he really want room service?
Yes,
Or did he want
the
his
que-
childhood back?
The issue, is that I was like, oh, he wants money so he can have a nice life. But then Kendra reminded me, he's like, no,
Yeah.
he wants to get the device out of his head so he can have his childhood memories back. And I'm like, are you sure?
That's why I
'Cause he
found the
doesn't-
speech confusing,
Yeah.
because I was like, wait a minute, this hasn't been what he's been after.
Yeah,
this
he's like,
whole movie.
I want to get my shirts pressed. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So this is what he wants, but I guess not.
I mean,
Yeah,
I want all
confusing,
those
but
things he mentioned.
Yeah.
I did enjoy
not
that
nice.
speech. I
That
thought it
outburst.
was, yeah.
It's big. Is
Yes.
it like the biggest? I mean, I'm trying to think of like how big we've seen Keanu get over the years, and like I think of like John Wick. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, I can't remember him like having an outburst in the Matrix
Yeah, like
or
yelling and flailing with both arms and stuff, you know?
Yeah, does he scream like that in like Point Break or Speed?
Maybe this was the last time. He was like, never again. I'm not
He
doing that
spent
again.
all of it.
Yeah,
I
I've got no more to give.
And then he just tones it down, and then he's like, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I learned from the internet that is a famous speech, but you got to type in all caps when you yell, "I want room service."
Oh,
all
yeah,
caps.
of course.
So, all right. My last nice thing is, listen, I didn't like Dolph Lundgren's character. I thought the character was stupid. I thought his delivery was stupid. I didn't know what we were supposed to get from that, and I was like thinking, like, well, Dolph Lundgren will be entertaining. No, but what I like about the movie, and I don't think it necessarily handles the moment well, but I like that the movie at the end goes so bonkers. It just goes so bananas that you have to describe the end, the climax of the film as there's a cybernetic psychic dolphin having a psychic battle with Dolph Lundgren's cyborg street Jesus. And like that's meanwhile, yes, Keanu Reeves is being guided through cyberspace by this psychic dolphin to deliver the cure for a worldwide disease so Johnny could remember a birthday party he has with his mom. But the battle,
I would buy this movie if you described it.
right? It's just like you think when you're watching it. I feel like when you're talking about the cyberpunk aesthetics, but I feel like we spend so much time on like these just grungy streets. It looks like it could just be filmed on anybody's, like, you know, any back alley. But when you have to tell people like, oh yeah, at the end there's a psychic dolphin is taking out cyborg Dolph Lundgren Jesus, and I mean that's that's going for it. You know, they don't care if you think it's silly or not. They've got the dolphin, they've got the cyborg Jesus, and Dolph Lundgren gets like melted by this dolphin's psychic attack.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not even like, oh no, my head. It's just it just melted away until he's just like a burnt crisp. It's gross.
I wonder if he was just the final boss fight just because they had to clean up the character. Now that they
yeah, well, like that interview said, they told him they had to have Dolph Lundgren. So
you have to.
And they did.
Though I don't. If without the Dolph Lundgren character, how does the movie end? Like, what's the drama?
Classical Japanese actor Takeshi Kitano in there, and he kind of bites the bullet.
Yeah.
Then some preacher fight.
Kendra, you have a third nice thing you have to say.
Yeah, and by the end of the movie, I didn't have it, and I had to think for a little bit. But
yep. We're very contemplative on this podcast. Sometimes we just have to go out into the wilderness, sit, and really think about what we just watched.
Really dig.
Mm-hmm.
So my last nice thing is that I thought that there was some good makeup work in this movie. Specifically, I liked the Ice-T people. I liked like all the lines and stuff they had on their faces.
The Lost Boys.
Yeah, and the two people who were like the bodyguards for that one guy, they had this like really cool like triangle eyeshadow like all over their face. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Okay. And I thought it looked cool actually.
All right.
I mean, they were weird, but I appreciated the makeup. So props to whoever was on makeup for this movie because I liked it and I thought it added to, you know, the aesthetic, the cyberpunk aesthetic of the movie.
The Johnny Mnemonic makeup artist is going to listen to this podcast and a tear is going to run down her face like,
tear.
Finally!
So yeah, that's my third nice thing. I thought there
Good
was
job,
good makeup
Linda
work.
Gill, I guess. She was the key makeup artist.
There
Cool.
you go.
Well,
on the movie.
I enjoyed her vision.
And also Fred C. Blau Jr., the tattoo makeup artist. He had a lot of work to do.
Okay, cool.
Good job, the
Yeah.
entire department.
Yeah, I really liked the lines on their, like the line Ice-T had on his face, and like they all had different types of lines. I don't know. I thought it looked.
No, you
cool.
like line-based makeup
Yeah, sure.
work.
I do. I like a good line.
All right.
So yeah, that's my third nice thing.
Guys, we did it. We each brought 3 nice things
We
about
did
Johnny
it.
Mnemonic.
Fantastic.
I've got a couple of listener thoughts on the movie itself. At Wolf Venom Gaming on Twitter says about the movie, their nice thing about this movie was it has a dolphin that can hack. They also enjoyed Jones.
Well, who doesn't?
Hashtag Team Jones.
Yep. Maddie on Facebook said, "This is a great movie, quintessential cyberpunk. Its only shortcoming," and I'm going to disagree on that, but he says its only shortcoming was that it was made in such a volatile era of electronics that between its production and release, consumer electronics quickly surpassed the unimaginable upgrades that sci-fi should bring. So again, the whole cyberpunk is the one we keep catching up with.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's
catch up.
Yeah,
if you surpass it during the filming of the movie, that's
I know,
that is pretty rough.
I don't know if I agree that this is the only shortcoming, but he thinks that it's just too bad that as this movie was coming out, things were already, moving on, especially the internet.
5 was a very that was an age of innovation.
Well, Sony used the internet in a big way. They did like a $20,000 scavenger hunt on the internet at the time, and they were big proponents. They were talking, one of the reasons they financed this movie is because they thought like the internet's a big thing, electronics are a big thing, we can really tap into people. And they saw the internet, I can't remember the quote, but they had mentioned that instead of word of mouth on the internet, instead of just one person telling one person, it's one person telling millions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so Sony at this time, they were on board with the internet and excited. William Gibson said it was kind of like watching kids try out a new toy. So I don't think William Gibson doesn't have many nice things to say about this movie. But
I wonder if this movie contributed to AT&T's success, because there was so much AT&T.
Oh, the product placement was unreal. For
yeah,
AT&T.
well, I guess Sony saw this also as they talked about the synergy between their corporations, because they were doing the movie, but they had Sony CD players, and you know, all their product integration was in there. They're like, check this out, we've got it all worked out. So I think the future wasn't as bright for them as they were hoping with this. But I gotta ask, Kendra, are you gonna watch this movie again in your life?
In my life, maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
You're pro rewatching this movie.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it would depend on the circumstances. If I was with a group of people and they were like, "Oh, I've been wanting to watch this," I would be like, "Yeah, put it in. Let's do it." So I understand. I kind of get why it has a following.
Wow.
I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, we had fun watching it. So, well, I had fun watching it with you. So,
you know what? Listeners can't see my face, but my mouth is just open. I'm kind of shocked.
I can hear your face.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah, I did not hate it.
So
right. If the stars aligned, I would watch it again. I probably wouldn't just put it in by myself and sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
But
all
Glass
right.
of wine and some John in the
All right, I guess I gotta introduce you to some like cool cyberpunk.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And you have nostalgia for this movie, but you said it's been 20 years since you've watched this last time.
Yeah, pretty much.
How likely, like, do you see yourself watching this again in the future?
Like I said, I didn't hate it. I kind of enjoyed it. Part nostalgia and part that I actually felt it's not as terrible as they make it out to be.
Right.
I like all the cyberpunk things they did, and I mentioned it in a Discord group here that I'm gonna watch a movie and do a podcast, and they're like, oh, what movie are you watching? I'm like, John and Mnemonic, and I've never heard of it.
Really?
Probably a lot of people who haven't actually heard of it, maybe younger people. But I'm like, if somebody was curious and wanted to watch it, I'd watch it with them.
Okay.
I don't see myself putting it on.
Right.
We're probably in the same situation. It's not like I'm not going to sit down with a glass of wine and Mnemonic by myself.
For some Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
But I mean, if someone in the foreseeable future wanted to watch it, I'd be down to watch with them, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not opposed at all.
All right.
Are you out?
Listen, I went into this excited to watch the movie because I like cyberpunk and I like Keanu Reeves, and watching it was hard for me to be like, to figure out why it has as many positive fans as it does. Like I said, it spends a lot of time on like just the streets, and I think if we were more in like fancy hotels and computer interfaces and stuff, I'd be more positive about it. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I understand maybe why it has a lasting appeal, but yeah, if somebody was like, hey, should I watch Johnny Mnemonic, I'd be like, all right, no, can I suggest something else? And well,
I'd be like, are you in the mood for something that's gonna be not amazing, but a fun?
I mean, it's not the
romp.
worst movie that I could be forced to watch again, but yes, this is not a movie that I'm going to try to watch again. So I've seen it once though, and I feel like, maybe if you're getting into cyberpunk, or you're into cyberpunk and you haven't seen it, it's probably worth watching just for the education of it all. All right, well then, I want to thank both Kendra and Marius for being on this podcast. Marius, where you go by Ensville Games on most places, but where can people find you?
I guess you can find me on that their Twitter, where I'm at Ensville Games, and I also try to stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Ensville_games, because that seemed like a good idea at the time.
And Kendra?
I'm at Miss Music Box 91 on Twitter, and I have another podcast that I do with my brother and my cousin called Nostalgia Me This, and we each week one of us brings something we're nostalgic about, and we talk about if it's still good, and if we like it. Fun time. Yeah. So if you want to listen to that, it's called Nostalgia Me This. It's on iTunes and SoundCloud.
That's been going on for a bit, but it has joined the Radio Meanwhile network.
It has.
Amazing. Yeah. It's on the internet.
Yep, we absorb them.
You can watch it with your iPhones.
Your iPhones. And I'm duskvstweak online, basically anywhere online. So you can find me on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube. If you're looking for myself, just type in duskvstweak. You can also find me on a non-Radio Meanwhile podcast called The All the Books Show, which I do with my friend Nick over at the library I work with, where we talk about book news, author news, and literary news.
Yes, you do.
So
they've been interviewing a lot of authors lately.
Yeah. Maybe we'll try to get William Gibson.
They just interviewed one of the Monkees, so that was awesome.
What?
That's true. We just interviewed Mike Nesmith of the Monkees.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Thank you again for listening to this podcast. And again, please rate, subscribe, and share this show on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or YouTube. And please follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Nice Things Pod, and visit us at radiomeanwhile.com. Thanks for listening, and you can join us on the next episode, where we're going to be the next couple episodes, I should say, we're going to be talking about Battlefield Earth, Fantastic Four 2015, and Dragon Ball Evolution. Are our next 3 shows.
Am I on that episode?
I don't think you have to be on the Dragon Ball episode here, so yes.
I'm gonna be listening.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.